Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 15th pick in my selection of 30 most wanted vehicles for me personally for the future of the GranTurismo series, be that GT Sport or of course GT7, GT7 being the more likely of the two to see the majority of these, if any, get a chance of actually being on GranTurismo. And it's known to some on the channel that I'm not a huge fan, generally speaking, of the Dodge Viper. I don't dislike the car. It's certainly not a bad car. It's very quick around the track. It has a massive engine, which is inherently cool. It's certainly a good-looking car, and it is one of the most consistently quick cars of the GranTurismo series. All of the Vipers that are featured on every single GranTurismo game are always up there with the best of them. Certainly one of the quickest road cars in the game on every single GranTurismo game, up until GranTurismo 6. And that is certain to be the case on GT Sport, if the Viper's included, which it probably will be, and also for sure on GT7. It's not one of my favourite cars though. I have respect for the Viper. I like how it does things in a very old school way. It's a very mechanical, analog super sports / muscle car instead of being a technically advanced, more modern machine, which is kind of what the Corvette has become now with the 7th generation. To some degree it's become a bit more technically advanced, which works for the Corvette. That is very appropriate. The Corvette has always been, more so than the Viper, about the pursuit of racing technology, and in order to remain competitive, technical advancement is necessary in this day and age, so I understand and support the Corvette in doing that. The Viper, though, doesn't really need that so much. And unfortunately, technically speaking, the Viper doesn't exist anymore. Production has ended for the Dodge Viper, and Dodge is not building a replacement. They haven't ruled it out for the future, but at least not for a while. Sales aren't good enough, and times are changing, and the Viper has pretty much for the most part had its day in its current form. And despite having 3 very individual generations, the Viper basically kept a very similar formula. Huge truck-sourced engine, fettled by Lamborghini, in a very curvaceous, almost Hot Wheels style super sports body, with a relatively small cockpit in comparison to how large the rest of the car is. Almost like the American equivalent of a Wacky Racers car or a Jaguar E-Type, that kind of thing, or a Morgan. That very long bonnet, short trunk, 2-seater, 2-door sports car layout. And the Viper has proven through both motorsport and its high-performance versions, especially the ACR models, that it can be an incredible track machine. Very successful racing car in multiple series, and the ACR version is one of the quickest cars ever around the Nürburgring. This car, which is the Devon GTX, is based on the Viper. In effect, the Devon GTX would have been the replacement to the Viper, because back in 2010, when Viper production was already starting to go downhill a bit, Chrysler was looking to sell the parts needed, in effect, to continue production of the 2nd generation Viper, which basically covers everything from the 2003 SRT-10 all the way up to the ACR. The 2nd generation shape, where the car got much more aggressive. And they wanted to sell that platform to move on to the newer shape Viper, which we already have on the game, the 2013 spec machine. Devon, interestingly enough, was the only company who bid on buying those Viper parts and toolkits to be able to build them. But they refused to sell it to Devon, because Chrysler wanted a minimum of $10 million, and they bidded lower than that. So unfortunately, Devon didn't get the parts needed. And so if this car were to be added to GranTurismo, technically speaking, the car that we would have on the game is the concept version / the test prototype. Now, I believe there were more than one version of the Devon made. There was a show car version, which is the most commonly viewed, which is red, but there was also a more competition spec machine which was used in track testing. And interestingly, We don't have to guess as to how effective this car would be on GranTurismo, because it is actually already a proven car in real life. And the reason why I say that is because the Devon GTX back in 2010 or around 2010 broke, unofficially, but nonetheless, broke the production car lap records at both Laguna Seca and Willow Springs, both of which are of course featured on GranTurismo. Now, to break the production car records on both circuits, that really does show the capabilities that this car has. Now, the Viper is almost ironically an amazingly good track car, which seems, well, just that, ironic. Of all the cars that you would assume would be quick around the track, the Viper wouldn't really be among the top, not for me anyway. It's very much a hot rod or drag car in its on-paper concept. A huge engine, who cares about cornering? But it's just not the case. The Viper is an incredible base model for track racing, and the Devon takes that to an even greater level. Now, the Devon takes the essential concept of the Viper, mechanically, primarily of course the engine, and really takes it into supercar territory. Because as standard, the Viper, although very quick, is still arguably no more than a super sports car. An argument could be made for the ACR, but personally I still don't consider that to be a supercar. A supercar is more than just about performance. It's about the whole package. It's about the quality, the price, the exclusivity, the marketing, and the performance. Everything all in one. And also, to some degree, the appearance. To me, the Viper just doesn't deliver on all of those things enough to be a true supercar. Whereas the Devon GTX certainly does. For a start, it looks the part. When I first saw the car, I didn't think that much of it. I thought it was just another variant of an American sports car from some company who wanted to make a quick buck. Basically just a Viper with a different body. Where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, the Alfa Romeo TZ3. Do we really need another Alfa Romeo TZ3 on GranTurismo? Well, no, we don't. So why am I suggesting this car? Well, for the very simple fact that the Devon GTX would put the Alfa Romeo TZ3 to shame. Not necessarily in a straight line, but as an all-round supercar. Because the Alfa Romeo TZ3 is very much a one-trick pony. It's only good for top-end performance. As a track car, it's not bad, but there are loads of other supercars that can easily beat it around a vast majority of circuits. The only tracks that the TZ3 is good on are tracks with wide open, long straights to use that power. Any track which requires more technical based performance, low-end acceleration, handling, grip, drivability, you never see people using the TZ3 under those circumstances. It's just not good enough. On tracks like Sierra, the Nuremberg Ring, Laguna Seca, twisty circuits like that, it's just not good enough. There are plenty of other supercars that can wipe the floor with it. The difference with the Devon is, as their lap records on Laguna Seca and Willow Springs prove, it can actually outrun other supercars on technical circuits. But given that it's powered by the 650 horsepower 8.4 litre Viper V10, it could easily be made to be one of the quickest supercars in the game in a straight line. Consider how quick the Viper-based vehicles already are on the game. We have the Vipers. We have the 1999 Viper, the 2002 Viper, the 2003 SRT-10, the SRT-10 Coupe, the ACR, the 2013 and the Launch Edition, the GTSR Concept, the GTSR Race Car, and the Alfa Romeo TZ3. All of those cars are capable at cruising at over 290, with the one exception being the race version. If that's the case, the Devon GTX, which has superior aerodynamics to the Viper, could easily be made to be just as quick. You're talking a cruising speed of 295 easily, if not more. Now, if that wasn't enough, The body of the Devon GTX and part of the interior is also made of carbon fibre. So although official weights and specs are hard to find for the car, you could bet that it is probably lighter than the Viper. Now the Viper isn't an overly heavy car to begin with. It's not light, but it's not that heavy either. It weighs around the same as your average Lamborghini. So this car could easily take the weight down to something more like a Ferrari Enzo or a Zonda kind of territory, making it easily one of the best track-going supercars in the game. Now, highly unfortunately in real life, they never actually sold them as a production model. They wanted to make around 36 cars a year with a price tag of around $500,000, which, although I love the car, is certainly way too much for a Viper-based vehicle, regardless of how good it is around the track. Because at the end of the day, although it is a true supercar based on the Viper, it's still a little bit too close to the Viper to have that much more of a price tag, whereas some other vehicles that do use Viper power, such as the British-made Bristol Fighter, do take the car to a completely different level of exotic. The Devon was just a little bit too close to the Viper, especially visually. It does look, unfortunately, just like a rebodied Viper. A very good-looking one, but it's easy to mistake it for being nothing more than that. The reality of that is that that's wrong, but still, that would affect public image. And unfortunately, due to Chrysler not playing ball, the car was effectively canned for the moment. At least one vehicle was sold. That may be the only vehicle, but I'm not sure. But at least one was sold at auction, but it went for $220,000 instead of the proposed $500,000 because there was no reserve. As it happens, though, $220,000 is much more realistic for a supercar like that. And given the fact that it is more aerodynamic and lighter than the Viper, you're talking a top speed in the region of at least 205 and a 0 to 60 time of around 3.5 seconds. So a true, proper supercar. And as far as how good this car could be on a game, it has been featured on at least one racing game franchise, Forza Motorsport. It was included on the game at least as far back as Forza 4. I can't recall at the moment if it was on Forza 3. I think it may have been as a DLC car. But on that game, it's not a hugely popular model to use. You don't see a huge amount of people using it. But I used to absolutely love the car on the game. It was extremely competitive, very undervalued, which made it a fantastic sleeper in the supercar class. And were it on GranTurismo, it would definitely be competitive. As far as how it would fit into the game, your PP would easily be around the same level as the ACR, if not higher. And as for the price, I'd like to see it cost somewhere between 250 and 500,000 credits. Because on a game, it doesn't really matter about price, and that would seem to be appropriate for what the vehicle can do and how much more exotic than the Viper it is. But that's it overall for this particular pick. If you are new to the series, feel free to slap down below what cars you would love to see, maybe on GT Sport or on GT7. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.